Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel, guys. Today is November 19th, 2018. Happy Monday to all of you. We have quite a bit on the show lined up for tonight. So let's get right to it with some space weather. And then I've got a couple articles to read to you real quick here on SPACEWEATHER.com. First, our solar wind speeds are sitting at a 337.8 kilometers per second with a very thick density of 22.9. Sunspot AR2727 is decaying and may be gone soon. Sunspot number 14. Some interesting news today as well. Look at this. The TCI is down to 40 billion watts. That's the lowest it's been since we started reporting on TCI. As you see, back in 2009, the lowest recorded TCI reading was 20 billion watts. So we will continue to monitor this stat as our atmosphere is cooling. And here's proof right here before we even go any farther. Here is an aurora, northern lights, folks. On November 19th, an outburst of northern lights over Norway painted the sky with all colors. Oh, look at this. Pink, red. There's even blue in here. And green, of course. But the pink and the red and the blue should be of concern as far as what we're seeing in our atmosphere. Aurora colors are associated with specific atoms and molecules in Earth's atmosphere. Green is due to energetic particles hitting the oxygen atoms at an altitude between 100 kilometers and 200 kilometers. The red is caused by oxygen atoms too, but higher up around 200 kilometers. Nitrogen molecules glow pink below 100 kilometers, while nitrogen ions glow blue above 100 kilometers. So think about that. Below 100 is where you start to see the pink. And that has to come to mind when you think about RoySpencer.com and the information that he has there. When we look at the lower atmosphere temperatures, they are indeed cooling right now. And this picture is complete proof of that. Gorgeous colors. But it mentions in here at the very beginning that the blue and the pink are very rare. Northern lights are often green, sometimes red, and rarely pink or blue. And that's because we haven't seen a minimum this deep ever. In modern time records, I should say. We've never seen this intense of a minimum. And looking at KP indices are quiet at a 1 with a 24-hour max of 2. And looking at our SDO, but before we do that, here's the second article that I wanted to read from SPACEWEATHER.com because, you know, Dr. K. Strong, hashtag the doctor's wrong. Last week he wanted to talk about an area that wasn't even named sunspots. Well, here we have a ephemeral sunspot. Ephemeral is what we call it. And this ephemeral sunspot does display the reverse polarity of what's to come in solar cycle 25. Now, the important part about this is that we learned back in April of this year, 2018, that just because we see that one spot, a reverse polarity, doesn't mean that, okay, cycle 25 starts here, as we see these cycles overlap each other, okay? So it's going to be common over the next several months intermittently seeing these small situations. Like these aren't even named sunspots. These are just the resemblance of what's to come in the next cycle. We go on to look and how it talks about, we've seen a spot like this now, December 20th of 2016, April 8th of 2018, and now we can add November 17th, 2018 to the list. Now, the slow transition between solar cycle and 24 and 25 appears to be underway. Here's what we need to focus on right here, folks. There's a lot of debate about, are we in a grand solar minimum right now? I stand on the line that says we are heading towards a grand solar minimum. When we first started this channel, we were told that this is the grand solar minimum, but over the years since we've evolved, we've learned from a lot of other people. Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers. I have other sources that I talk to on a daily basis that really think that not only could it be not until 2030, but possibly 2041 before the actual grand minimum kicks in. In other words, we're looking at 2 short cycles at the most. But I'm going to stay with that theory of cycle 25 is going to be a very short cycle. It's going to be weaker than 24, and we're still going to see things declining toward that grand solar minimum that I think a lot of scientists are now starting to come together on the year 2030. And there's a reason why you hear that year 2030. So I really generally believe that that's where we're heading. 2030 is when the grand... Now, cycle 25 is going to be nothing but a walk in the park by any means. I am not minimizing what's happening right now. I'm not minimizing what's still going to happen in this cycle, because it's still going to be a very low maximum. It's not going to be much of a maximum, period. So the cooling is going to continue. We're still going to deepen into the minimum into 2019, into 2020, 2021, 2022 before we maybe start seeing the beginning of solar cycle 25's maximum, which is going to be short-lived. It's not going to be a normal maximum. It's going to be very short-lived. And then once again, we start declining towards the bottom at the end of cycle 25, heading into 2030. And that's where I believe, and other scientists alike too, not just Ben Davidson and solar suspicious observers, but other scientists also believe 2030 is now their thinking. As we get closer to solar cycle 25, we do know there is going to be another cycle. It is appearing that way now. So SPACEWEATHER.com really wraps it up very well right here. What does this mean? First, it suggests that the solar cycle is still operative. This contradicts widespread internet buzz that a grand minimum is in the offing, with no new sunspots expected for decades as the solar cycle grinds to a halt. Second, if patterns of a previous solar cycles hold, solar minimum is not finished. It will probably continue to deepen in a year or so, even as new solar cycle 25 occasionally pops up with a sunspot, promising an ultimate end to the new lassitude. So, I believe that SPACEWEATHER.com also believes that solar cycle 25 is going to be a very weak cycle, weaker than 24. And then if we have a 26 and a 27, like some think, they'll be record-breaking. You won't even notice we're having a maximum. But I think a lot of scientists, Zarkova, a lot of people out there who believe that 2030 is the magic number. Now, that doesn't mean we have 10 years to prepare for this, because things are happening right now. So, again, I'm not minimizing grand solar minimum. I'm not disregarding grand solar minimum. I'm just saying the proof is what we report on, and the proof is showing that we are possibly in the midst of starting solar cycle 25 within the next 6 to 9 months. Here is a look at this region that's reverse polarity. As you see, it's decaying. Nothing intense happening about this particular area, and it's not being labeled as a sunspot. But it's of interest because of its reverse polarity. And that's what we're looking at here, guys. So I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who's going to jump on this information. Like your global warming people are going to say, I told you we're not going into a grand minimum. Well, no, we're not, but we're still going into a very weak solar cycle. Also, we're going to watch this region right here, guys, not only for sunspot activity possible, but I'll show you here just in a second. We have a monster of a coronal hole coming in that direction as well. But no, I can hear the global warming folks now. I told you it wasn't going to be a grand minimum, but they're the ones that are going to minimize the solar cycle effect on everything right now. So, and boy, we'll get into that too. This is going to be a good one tonight, folks. I promise. KP indices, we already saw that. I wanted to show you guys the backside of the sun, and boy, does it look good. Let's go ahead and bring up this animated GIF. There's our coronal hole I was speaking about. This is the total backside. This is the far eastern limb. Here's directly, and then there's the coronal hole I was speaking of. Let me get the arrow out. So backside, turning away from Earth, dead center, and then here we go. What's coming around the eastern limb is that coronal hole. So I do expect a possibility of geomagnetic activity from that particular hole. As it's a pretty good size. The width of it at the equatorial region is going to be just right for a G1, maybe a G2 if that continues to grow in strength as it appears to right now. Those regions that we saw that were active last week, still possibility. We'll keep our eyes on that as well. Our TSI reading coming in at a 1360.6686 on November 12th, 2018. Again, the data is about 7 to 8 days behind. That's the real time. It's about as real time as we get. I want to point out something real quick. Something that I notice when we do this show from time to time. Down at the bottom is the overall over years, over time. The graph has gone up. It's gone down. And clearly we can see our TSI output levels are starting to show a continuing decline motion. And the only way to really judge that is see this line right here and then measure it from that line. Look at how this gap widens as time continues to go by. That gap between this top line here where my arrow point is and this line right here is where the actual level of the output for TSI is. So if you notice since 2014, the max, you can see the decrease in TSI over the past 8 years. I'm sorry, over the past 4 years, I should say. The peak really started getting going around 2012, maxed out in 2014. But like I said, you can see that space growing in between that line and also where we actually are with TSI. And let's start off first tonight in increased activity at Fuego. Volcano prompts evacuations in Guatemala. At least 2,000 residents living in 10 communities near Fuego volcano were asked to evacuate early Monday, November 19th, 2018, as increased volcanic activity continues at Guatemalan volcano. Now, this is the 5th eruption of the year in Fuego. We were just talking about Fuego a few weeks ago. It was its 4th, and now it's its 5th. And got to be honest, Mario and I were discussing before the show started, and is there a reason for concern? And the answer is not really. These are volcanoes that continue to frequently erupt. So this is nothing like the big ones on its way. However, you still have to keep in mind of the health advisories that these things pose. So we still have to keep an eye on the air that's not really healthy for people to breathe in right now. So I'm not minimizing the volcano, but you might have other people out there who might try to make a bigger deal about this, like the what the hell is it called? The Ketapetl, whatever. The Popo volcano, okay? That also went off today too. But that's another one that since we've started this channel, we've talked about more than once. So again, yeah, it's the minimum, and we expected this kind of activity during a minimum. That's why I believe we are seeing these volcanoes and earthquakes uptick right now. And let's go to CBS News for a update on the fire situation. Now, I'm going to read a little bit, and then I have an article that I really want to share with you guys. Wow. Mari, can anybody hear me?
You keep on talking.
Well, I'm just curious why the desktop audio is picking me up.
Is GarageBand on?
I guess so, huh?
I thought I closed out of all the apps.
How's everybody in there now? Can you hear me good? Just asking the chat real quick. I apologize, folks.
It's just you, Jake.
I had this on right here.
Really?
And it was picking me up. Watch.
Oh, it is picking you up.
See, is there a mic that's automatically on the desktop?
I just leave it off for now.
Sorry. All right, folks. So I just got a little distracted there. Hopefully you can hear me a little better now. California wildfires, nearly 1,000 unaccounted for in campfire. Live updates. The death toll from the campfire in Northern California increased by 1 on Sunday to 77, while a number of those people unaccounted for have decreased to 993. The blaze was 2/3 contained as of Sunday night after consuming more than 150,000 acres. In Southern California, just outside Los Angeles, Woolsey Fire was 91% contained after burning almost 100,000 acres, killing 3 people. Dense smoke from the fires has been smothering parts of the state, which has been described as the dirtiest air in the world. and that's saying a lot because we all know the air issues in China. Rain is in the forecast midweek, which could help firefighters, but also complicated the challenging search for remains. It's a disheartening situation, says Butte County Sheriff Corey Hona. As much as I wish we could get through this before the rains come, I don't know if that's possible. The rain could also trigger mudslides and rock slides as well. And we do know the possibilities of that as we continue to report on the area. From last year, we had fires and then landslides followed after we had the horrible... What was that really ritzy community that had the bad mudslides last year where all the celebrities lived in?
Yeah, I
I don't remember the name of the city. It's left my mind, but last year we reported on it where it hit a very highly income area. And so it's like, it doesn't matter if you're poor, if you're middle class, if you're rich. If you live in these areas that are subjected to fires and drought and then heavy rains all of a sudden, like California we've seen in the rainy season, they kind of get hit when it happens. It has the last couple of years. But here's a little bit of update locally stats here for the campfire. 150,000 like we already said, 65% contained, 77 fatalities, 993 unaccounted for, almost 13,000 structures destroyed. Full containment is expected by the end of the month, November 30th. The Woolsey fire has burned almost 100,000. Like I said, it's 91% contained, but that one has over 1,400 structures and not 12,000. Damage 337. Full containment is expected actually here just in a couple of days. Of course, we have information here on vigilance, but listen to this. I'm going to turn the desktop audio on, so it might be a little echoey. Actually, I shouldn't do that. We can probably pick up the mic from this. Guys, check out what Governor Brown has, and I'll stop it here in a minute. I'm going to let you watch a little bit of this clip. This is truly amazing.
Been some containment, but the number of dead and missing continues to rise. Officials place the death toll in the campfire in Northern California at 76 and say that at this point, there are over 1,200 missing. President Trump toured both regions hit by devastating fires with California Governor Jerry Brown and incoming Governor Gavin Newsom just yesterday. We spoke with Governor Brown after that visit, where, for the most part, politics was put aside. We asked why the fires had gotten so out of control.
Well, how they started is now a subject of investigation. The conflagration occurs because the brush, the vegetation is so dry and the humidity is so low.
Now, those are important parts to what happened here. Okay, humidity was low, vegetation's been dry, they've been in a drought. Okay?
And when you have that, and then the heat and the years of drought, that gets it going. And in Paradise, there were a lot of buildings that also caught fire, and then they just went from one to the other. So it's a mixture of many things. And the president's talked about how our forests are managed. That's an element.
Okay, he admits the forest mismanaged. The governor is actually admitting, and why is he admitting this, guys? Because he's on his way out. That's why. Okay, if he was still had another 4 years, he wouldn't be admitting this. But now, because he's getting funding from the federal government, now he's saying that there is a little blame to put on our forest.
But there's also the way the houses are built, the materials, what kind of vegetation is around, and then there's also the changing climate, and the increasing drought, and the lowered humidity and water vapor.
Which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, in the West, the Southwest, especially during a Modaki El Nino, we are actually expecting more drought conditions, all right, and more fire danger extending into the winter months here.
All of that is combining to create the tragic situation that we saw today in both Northern California and here in Southern California.
As you say, the president did acknowledge that he said climate change might be a factor a little bit, but
Truth.
He primarily blamed forest management as the cause here. Is California to blame here for its own problems?
Well, where Paradise is, of course, is surrounded by federally managed land.
So He's going to go ahead and say that it's mismanagement from the forests, but he's also going to blame the federal government for not doing their part. So he's deflecting the blame, basically.
These are national forests. They're not state parks, and they're not private property by Californians. So it is the federal government, and the fact is that managing the forests is part of it. They're a lot denser than they were 200 years ago. But on top...
Interesting years that he just mentioned there, isn't it? 200 years ago, huh?
On top of that, we have this 5-year drought. We have reduced rainfall. We have the dryness that turns vegetation and bushes and houses and trees literally into timber. So it's ready to explode. So there's an atmospheric element, which is part of the natural cycle.
What? Did he just say part of a natural cycle?
Turns vegetation and bushes and houses and trees literally into timber. So it's ready to explode. So there's an atmospheric element, which is part of the natural cycle, and then there is an increasing effect of climate change. In fact, I have read specifically peer-reviewed scientific articles that say that the amount of land burnt in California over the last 15 years has doubled because of climate change.
Did you make that case?
Okay, so this is my favorite part about the liberals here and the Democrats. They don't use global warming anymore. Go ahead and mute the desktop audio so we can get rid of the echo. All right, so the liberals and the Dems, they don't like to use the word global warming anymore. They've completely used climate change, which to me is a coward's way. It's like hiding from something because it doesn't really suit your agenda anymore because it's not true. Hey, he said natural cycles. He didn't say man-made climate change. Climate change is happening right now. I told people I don't deny climate change. I deny man-made climate change. The climate is changing with this minimum, clearly. And there's no other way to put it. Yeah, the climate's changing all right. But to me, it's sad that these politicians can't tell the truth until there's no more campaigning to do. Because I promise you that Mr. Brown, or Moonbeam, as some of you call him, would have not said this on national television, especially CBS News. And it's good to hear that the CBS News team here is emphasizing on how President Trump has said climate change has little to do with it, because that's how little man-made emissions have to do with the climate. So you're starting to see this momentum build of they're using more terms that are truth now. Brown said natural cycles, the drought situation. Now listen, like I said, grand solar minimums. You look back on them. I believe California, droughts, forest fires. This is not the first time this has happened. It's funny, he mentioned a timeline of 200 years as if to hint that where we're heading right now with these natural cycles is heading back to those times. I'll leave the link in the description. You guys can take a look at it and, think what you want. But I'm reading between the lines, and not only that, but he put it out there. He's the one, he didn't mention once about man-made climate change. Not once. And like I said, he's telling the truth now because he doesn't have to campaign anymore and he's not running for office anymore. I'll tell the truth. It's funny how everybody's telling the truth after elections. Think about it. The Weather Channel. I'm still not over this, guys. I'm still not over this. The fact that they're talking about weak polar vortexes being a bad thing, not a good thing. Just because the word weak is in front of it doesn't mean that it's not going to be cold. It's just going to allow more cold air to come into the United States. And then this other thing, this more variable jet stream idea, is also supported by our own current place in solar cycle. It is thought that we are now within a year of the least active part of an 11-year solar cycle. So think about that. Let's pause everything. We're approaching the least active part of the 11-year solar cycle. We're not there yet. That is huge to me. It should be for you and everybody that you're trying to relay the message here and what's really happening. And I guess you're probably, well, what's the big deal? Why does it matter if we're global warming or global cooling? Well, part of it is that global cooling, to me, kills more than global warming. Life seems to be in an abundance when you have a warmer climate. Crops seem to thrive and yields are higher, and things like corn and soybeans and all that stuff. Cold temperatures not only kill people, but kill crops. And it's been happening all over the world the last 2 years with these freak storms, these early snows, the late snows happening well into April. Some parts of the country saw snow in May. That's been picking up over the last couple of years. So what's important about knowing the truth about what's happening with our climate is so we can be better prepared, so we can adapt, so we can thrive. A lot of you out there probably believe in population control, that telling the truth about global cooling will help preserve our population. And I know there's people out there that believe that world government wants to decrease our population, so by lying to the people about global warming, we'll keep people from being ready from what's about to really happen. And that's possibly why this channel gets censored so much. That's possibly why we get held back so much. Is because I think we do a decent job at relaying the truth to people out there in a manner that is not only believable, but we're showing you the proof. We're putting it together for you. We're showing you where to go to look at it. And we're starting to see it pop up a little bit in the mainstream media. Now you're saying, well, there, Jake, so there goes your theory about them not wanting you to be prepared. Well, that's the problem, see? Things that we could have done years earlier could prevent a lot of problems that we might have here in the near future. And by delaying those preparations, by delaying those plans, you know, it's kind of like a quarterback and a wide receiver in football. When you're throwing the ball to a receiver, you want to put the ball in front of him. So it goes over the defender, and the receiver catches it out in front of him. So he's in stride and heading up the field. It's the same thing when you're talking about planning for something. You don't want to throw a ball that's right at the receiver and hit him in the gut or behind him. The defender's probably going to be there to knock it down. And that's what they're doing right now with the whole global warming narrative, is that I'm throwing the ball and mainstream media has been knocking it down because we haven't been throwing it out in front. Now that we are, and we're putting the ball only where the truth is getting out, it's hard for the mainstream media to continue to lie about our climate and continue to lie about whether man has anything to do with climate change. You know, I believe we do have a very small contribution to climate change. Very, 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 very minor. Not enough for anyone to notice. I do believe in clean air for breathing purposes, for health purposes. I want our children to breathe in clean air, so we should burn fossil fuels responsibly and keep coming up with technologies that can reduce man-made emissions. But not to do it for the sake of saving the planet. I'm sick of hearing from the UN and others alike that we've got 10 years before we're going to die. Everything, the shit will hit the fan in 10 years. And that's what the UN people are saying. They keep pushing it back. You know, Al Gore said by 2013 we wouldn't have any ice caps. Now they're pushing it to 2030. You know, when's it? It's like Nibiru. Everybody keeps pushing the date when Planet X is going to invade the solar system. And the dates keep coming and they keep going. And it's the same thing about man-made global warming. The same thing. It's a hoax. They're trying to profit off of it. The government, the world government, has made millions, if not billions. Billions, if not trillions, off of carbon taxes, off of speaker fees and grant money and you name it. So yeah, if all of a sudden that came to a screeching halt and people all of a sudden all over the world started changing the narrative to cooling, all that money goes away. Weather Channel don't care. Weather Channel's not funded by the government. They're a private company. So of course the Weather Channel's going to tell you the truth when there's no money involved. Like right now, It was funny. I know I've said they push man-made global warming, and they have. They have really hard. But at least they didn't deny the obvious on what's happening. In fact, their predictions for this winter don't look like anything like what NOAA's saying. The United States in February is going to be in a deep freezer from the plain states all the way to the northeast. Even Florida is going to be below average. And this is going to be the outlook from December through February. So still half the country is going to be in a cold winter. NOAA only called for less than a third of the country to have a normal winter. And that was just in the Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and the southern parts of the United States to have their normal. In other words, Northeast, Ohio, Midwest, the plains, all over, you guys were supposed to have a warmer, mild winter. Now, I'm not saying the temperature's not going to have a couple streaks where we might be in a freeze for a couple weeks and then get temperatures back in the low 40s for a few days before we plunge again. Because we've already pointed out that we do have a weak polar vortex this year so far. The setup is there, which will allow these continuous cold blasts to keep coming over and over again, continuing to cool our surface temperatures. So, speaking of cold, once again, the Weather Channel, who has been our friend here lately, is doing a story about Thanksgiving could be among the coldest on record in parts of the Northeast. An Arctic air mass will engulf the Northeast late this week. Some cities may see their coldest on Thanksgiving Day. Low temperatures will be 15 to 25 degrees below average. I will tell you right now, where I live, my forecasted low for Thanksgiving morning is 5 degrees in upstate New York. November 3rd? 5 degrees. It already appears to me that colder, and that's just one night. There's only a couple days of really cold, so it's not a really cold snap. But that's flirting with disaster, if you ask me, having that kind of cold air this early in the year. It says another blast of cold air is expected to bring one of the coldest Thanksgivings on record for some Northeast cities. A strong area of high pressure from the Arctic Circle will descend southward across Canada and into the Northeast, sending temperatures plummeting towards levels more common on New Year's Day, not Thanksgiving Day. For some Northeast cities, high temperatures on Thanksgiving Day could be close to the coldest on record. Blah, blah, blah. They just repeated themselves, but they want to emphasize cold records. Cold records. The official U.S. Thanksgiving Day has been celebrated the last Thursday of November from 1863 to 1938, and the next to last Thursday in 1939 to 41, and the fourth Thursday from 1942 to the present. New York City has only had 3 Thanksgiving dating back to 1870 when high temperatures failed to rise out of the 20s. 3. Only 3. It's rare. The coldest of a high of 26 degrees on November 28th of 1901. Forecast highs on Thursday could be a near all-time record cold set almost 117 years ago. Imagine that. In the southern New England, Boston could come within a couple degrees of its coldest Thanksgiving high of 24 degrees set also back in November 28 of 1901. Here's the records. Here's the forecast. Philadelphia, forecasting a high of 29. You would beat that record from 96. Burlington, you would beat your record from 1938. Another 96 record that has been broken is in Providence, 22 degrees. You're going to smash it. The record is 30 degrees on Thanksgiving, November 28th of 96, 22 degrees. Ironically, November 28th is 4 times listed, and 2 of the 4 times are on 1901 and 1996. So these are some historic records that are being broke. These are likely also correlated with, you got it, solar cycle minimum. So yeah, more cold. Although it will be cold, the air will be also dry, which means there won't be any snowfall to worry about Thursday or Friday. But hey, cold. There's no false hope. They're not blowing smoke up our asses about possibly getting warm. I actually said a week and a half ago that we were looking at a possibility of some mild air interrupting our Thanksgiving, but due to some recent observations with stratospheric disturbances, possibly pushing more cold air from the Arctic down this way through Canada into the United States is now appearing to be a real thing. In fact, this to me would be our very first true polar vortex disturbance for the Northeast. Like I said, 22 degrees for the high, 5 for the low. Records almost 100 years old being shattered this coming Thanksgiving. And while we're talking about records, guys, I got a barrage of articles. I'm not going through each one. It's November to remember. One snowstorm puts November 18 in Lehigh Valley in the record books. 8 inches of snow in one storm. Lehigh probably sees that every winter. Okay? Winter. 8 inches. 8 inches of snow in one storm in November. That's only happened once before on November 25th, 1938. This week, 8.1 inches accumulated in Allatown area Thursday afternoon and Friday morning. That sets a new record. Thursday, they saw 7.4 inches alone. Top 5 snowiest November days in the Lehigh Valley, according to records back to 1912. In fact, that was the second snowiest day of all time. The record being in 1938, 8 inches in one day. But look, 38, a lot of snow fell. Again, multiple times we see this. November 27th, 1938, 2 days after they got 8, they got another 7 inches of snow. Also in November of 68, 6.4, and November of 67, 5.4. So that's a huge record that they just broke as far as the last 2 days of snow, 8.1 inches. It barely passes the November 25th record, but that's a mighty big record to fall this far along. Snowiest Novembers, 8.1 inches. They were at 15 inches back in 38, so it'll be interesting to look at what the rest of the year was like for those guys. Another headline, big winter storm shatters Syracuse records. 8.2 inches of snow fell in Syracuse. It's for the November 16th storm. The old record was 3.3 inches set in 1997, near a minimum at that time as well. This was also the 8th snowiest November day since records began in 1902. Again, 8th snowiest day for New York City is pretty impressive, if you ask me. And they weren't too short of being the 6th snowiest day in November. Again, November 28th showing up, but a different year this time, 1958. Another headliner, of course, all these damn, let's not allow this, let's not allow that. We want to talk really quick, speaking of snow records, on this day, 2014, we had, look at that, guys, this is lake effect of snow like you've never seen. 8 feet of snow in Buffalo, New York. And Mari, God bless her, was living in the heart of this storm. She said that she went to bed with a little bit of snow falling. When she got up the next morning, there was snow piled up almost over her car.
Look at that. Go to the picture that's a wall.
The cloud or this?
It's just a cloud.
Oh yeah, this.
That was the most amazing part of
this. This is an example of the lake being warm and a shot of cold air in the right direction of winds coming out of the north. But temperatures of the lake were, again, guys, this is November 2014. Remember, that was our maximum in 2014. So water temperatures were probably a little bit above average. And that cold air just came out of nowhere. But again, Mari woke up the next day. Look at that. Jeez. That's overnight. This was a slow-moving storm. My goodness. 50 to 70 inches in the Buffalo area. That's where Mari was. She was in that 50 to 70 range. That was the forecast. If only that was all they were going to get.
They said we wouldn't get more than a foot in the beginning, and the forecast changed.
Mari said that
I remember that pretty clear.
No more than a foot was supposed to be. This is a car lot being plowed through. Like anybody's going to come and buy a car.
Didn't predict that well at all.
No, a foot was predicted, and they got 8 feet. 8 feet. This was during a maximum, but this was also the beginning of the decline of the maximum. in November of 14, we started seeing things cooling just a little bit, not a lot. 2016, we had a freak peak of 0.88 in our lower atmosphere. But on this day, 2014, we had the infamous Buffalo blizzard, lake effect like you've never seen. Unreal. And just for laughs, I think NOAA climate.gov trolls me, because this was 3 hours ago when I found this, because they actually posted another thing on Facebook where they're talking about El Nino's 80% chance to form as of November 8th, and I put in the comments section, I can't stop laughing. And so I really feel like that they do these stories just to, like, because they're mad that I laugh at everything they post, really. But this one's great. From retreating snow elevations to rain-soaked powder, warming due to human-caused climate change will radically transform U.S. skiing over the remainder of the 21st century. These guys are about the hard-headed group of people I've ever come across in my life. I mean, this is worse than talking to a brick wall. At least the brick wall echoes your voice back at you, okay? You get some kind of response. These guys are just totally oblivious. And they are so reliant on government funding for what they're supposed to be doing. They're pushing so hard. They're trying to soak that as much as they can before Trump says, that's it. No more. We are not warming. Man is not warming our climate. I'm spending billions of dollars on funding your research that's false, and continuing manipulation of the data is being proven left and right. Starman has done an excellent job of pointing that out on his work. Alarming on how much data is manipulated. But this right here is fake news, guys. And it's supposed to be from one of the biggest top dogs climate people in the world. NOAA. Who doesn't trust NOAA, right? Dr. John Casey worked for him. Maybe that's why he stopped work for him. Maybe that's why he left NOAA. Because he knew better, and he knew different. And God forbid, if you said the C word, and I mean cooling, there goes all that funding. There goes all that money. Jobs will be lost. I'm telling you guys, this is more and more obvious as it goes along. It's just funny to me that Governor Brown is admitting that natural cycles are a part of this problem. Also, mismanaged forests. You heard him say that. He also throws in the fact that, drought, and this is fires. Now, this is supposed to be rainy season, okay? This is the rainy season. We'll get into that. Stay tuned. Parts of Louisiana broke records. That's right, folks. Louisiana saw a half-inch of snow. That record was set on November 24th, 1950. Not a lot. But, hey, it's Louisiana for crying out loud. And they broke a record.
During the afternoon hours.
No thanks. Let's see. Going along here. Surprise snowstorm. Truly a rarity. Nothing like it in 65 years in Philly. You don't say. Snowvember to remember, folks. That's all I got to say. The 3.6 inches measured officially at Philadelphia International Airport not only was a record for November 15th in Philadelphia, but it was the biggest snowfall so early in what we would say loosely call a season in 65 years. It also qualifies as the number 2 snowfall so early in the season in the entire period of official snow records kept in Philadelphia, dating back to 1884. The second snowiest day and possibly November. Just more proof. Not just up here. And of course they talk about the accidents, and it was a mess. The power outages, everything. That night we reported on this story. I went outside, and in the hour that we were on, we got about 1.5 inches of snow. Not that big of a deal. But, that's what was surprising me about the lack of prep for this storm, lack of salt trucks, lack of just people knowing what they're going to do about this storm. Shocked me. And then how grossly it was forecasted for most parts. And then once it came over top of us, everybody's like, well, it might be a little heavier, so let's go ahead and bump those totals up a little bit. Well, by then, people are like, well, wait a minute. You guys said it wasn't going to be that much. We're talking about in foot in some spots. Yeah. Another record to talk about. More record snow. This is all from last week, guys. 1.4 inches of snow. Not that big of a deal, but the record was 0.2 inches of snow in 1906. So that's a record that was smashed. Another record showing that 3.0, a trace of snow, was actually that record. That was smashed. 1.7, the BWI, that one's not so great. That was set back in 1908, but it was beaten by a half inch. And here is all the snow totals throughout the DC area. And so the last time we had snow totals like this was at the DC area was back in 1989. I want to stress that. I was just talking about this a couple nights ago. How my brother and I were talking about how it snowed a lot when we were kids. 89 was the heat of our childhood. And yeah, it did snow. It snowed on Halloween. So we remember being cold. What's the point? 89 was right around a minimum. Again, more correlation. If you go back and think about the years and just go 11 years from where we're at right now and continue to think about what the weather was like in those years, you'll know. It's the correlation's there. It's been there. It continues to be there. But yet, we're the climate deniers. No. I think it's the other way around. And it's so sad that the divide is so huge. It's almost like politics. If between Democrats, or I shouldn't even say Democrats, liberals and conservatives. That's what it feels like. Snowiest November in Springfield history. One more to share with you. 5.3 inches of snow had fallen. That was the snowiest record, the one on record for the city since 1800, the late 1800s. So this was the snowiest day in November for Springfield, Missouri. 5.3 inches. The monthly total is now 9.4 inches. November 9th is when Springfield average gets its first inch of snow. Having 5 inches in one day is unusual for November, said Dan Smith, National Weather Service senior meteorologist. The last time more than 5 inches of snow fell in Springfield in a 24-hour period was November 5th through the 6th in 1951, when the area seen about 8 inches of snow. So what's the point? Yeah, it's been a rare November. These pictures are everywhere. All over the East Coast, Northeast. Snow still on the ground up here in upstate New York. Temperatures are about to dip back at freezing again for highs. Getting really cold on Thanksgiving Day. These look like January pictures. Gorgeous to look at, but for people like Noah, who tell you that we are going to see less of this because of how we're warming, on how man is warming us. And what it really comes down to is that they're ignoring the real science. Weather Channel's not. They know what's up. They're finally telling the truth. And they're going completely against what Noah's forecast is, which is the mild winter outlook for us through December through February. Weather Channel disagrees, and also really disagrees when we get to February. Look at that. Not just below average, well below average. That's some cold air, folks. I kind of hope that changes a little bit. I'll take the below average, but the well below average is telling me we're going to be highs in the teens, lows in the single digits. Now, good news about those temperatures is that you don't have much snow. And when you do, it's very fine and it doesn't accumulate like that heavy wet stuff does. So that's the only good news. But again, folks, if we have a high wind event and the power goes out, and we're talking about single-digit temperatures, and it takes a week for the power to go on, that's dangerous. That's dangerous for anybody, any age, to have to live in those conditions without power for a week or even 3 days with temperatures in the single digits. It's time to start talking about, once again, alternate sources for heating that are safe for indoors, that won't cause fires themselves. It's time we start reopening that, because I think it's important that we think about it for this winter. It might be an ideal that we can talk about on Sunday's show with Henrik. Hopefully a couple others will be joining us as well. We're going to have an open discussion about how the mainstream media is slowly but surely starting to leak this out about Well, they're in the business to tell the weather, okay? Trust me, guys. Even though they've been man-made warming pushers for so long, they also want to be right. There's an ego factor involved with this as well. And right now, they would look like the badasses of the industry because NOAA and others are saying we're going to be mild this winter because of this so-called El Nino. But what's funny here is that the Weather Channel calls this a variation of an El Nino. And I'm not making this up. Particular variation of an El Nino. Modaki means almost in Japanese, I should say. So, enough of my blabbing. Start showing some GFS information here. Snow showers beginning to move into southern parts of New York, into New Hampshire, Connecticut, Massachusetts, into Northeast. Snow showers very light in the upstate area. Nothing to be afraid of for accumulation. Possible 1 to 3 in other places in the Northeast. More snow for the Great Lakes. And once again, on Wednesday, November 21st, Thanksgiving Eve, we should see another burst of maybe 1 to 2 inches of snow across western New York through upstate New York and New England. And hello, we have some weather out here in the Northwest to talk about. It's been cold out there too, folks. And as you see in the higher elevations, we will see some snow. Now, here's the 22nd. We originally thought the 23rd would be the beginning of this moisture for California. Thank God it begins today. But the problem that we are concerned with here at the Grand Solar Minimum Channel, this is the rainy season. We just have had over almost 300,000 acres of charred, burned, freshly landscaped area now is just completely gone, no vegetation. So what does that mean? Heavy rains, flash floods, mudslides, rock slides. So while we're dealing with the cold in the Northeast, we've got to deal with snow and rain. And look at this, November 22nd, huge amounts of rain to the Northern California region. Washington, Oregon, you'll see some snow showers. Montana, Idaho, this is the day after this is our Black Friday forecast, guys. So from Thanksgiving, kind of quiet, and then overnight Thanksgiving into Friday. This is kind of something to watch, folks. There will be people out and about during these hours for Black Friday. Black Friday sales start around 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving. This is around about the evening overnight hours, Thursday into Friday. We have very heavy rain moving in on the West Coast. East Coast, middle part of the United States, finally we get kind of a relief, a break. Nothing going on for us. Good. Enough is enough. But as we progress into Friday, that heavy rain almost stalls out in Northern California and finally moves out by Saturday. So we are concerned about heavy rains and flooding. Now, as I say, we got a break. Saturday, November 24th, a huge low-pressure system forms across the Midwest and continues to track across to the east. And once that system meets the colder air, it will turn into snow. And this one's showing all rain as we have slightly temperatures above freezing. But Monday, November 26th, is an interesting setup here, as it's rain ahead of this system. But as this system moves and spins out, it's dragging a pocket of cold air across Montana, all the way southeast to parts of southern Tennessee through the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast. Now, when that moisture moves through, the bulk of New England and not so much New York will get snow and snow only. And at the end of the month, Friday, November 20th, look at this setup, guys. And I'm not trying to be over sensationalist here, but my goodness. So we get that flooding rain out of the way in California. We get a big low pressure system to move through the Midwest. Ohio looking at snow, back into western New York getting snow, heavy snow in central New York. And as this system continues to move, and actually it is showing upstate New York next Tuesday, heavy snow. So there's a possibility we can add on to our totals right now. But as this snow is exiting next Tuesday, huge amounts of moisture moving into the Northwest, Oregon, Washington, Northern California. Once again, Northern California getting the bulk of it this time too. And look at this, 27th, 28th, the entire state of California, northern part anyway, is going to get drenched. After already receiving heavy amounts of rain on the 22nd, this is the 29th of November. Still lots of moisture in the Northwest. And then on the 29th into the 30th, boom, more moisture. Wow, that was a bad word. Oh, it's been a long day. It's Monday, folks. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to cuss on the air. So we look at rain moving in Northern California once again on the 29th into the 30th. Snow in higher elevations. It is getting nasty across the Midwest. Snow in the northern plains in the Dakotas, Minnesota, into Wisconsin. As we move this map into the 1st of December, I don't even know what to tell you what's happening here in the South. All I can say is, folks, we need to keep our eyes on this particular situation here on the 1st of December across Florida as they look to get heavy amounts of rain. But also, Northern Carolina has gone from drought to possibility of 6 straight days of heavy rain. And as we move through the 1st of December, a massive low pressure system once again spinning out and dragging yet another burst of cold Arctic air into the Midwest, into the Northeast. But look back here in the West, more heavy rain moving into the Northern California and snow in the upper elevations. Once again, December 5th. California, you're going to see one dry day between the 26th of November and December 4th. 2 dry days until December 5th. And as we have on the map, more cold air being dragged in after this massive low pressure system moves out. Let's put it all in motion. Speed it up. Wow. Just lots to talk about. The motion of these low pressure systems, the way they're spinning out and dragging the cold air down. These low pressure systems are massive, by the way. So it looks like more of the same. And that last storm right there on the 1st of December that's going up the East Coast, boy, does it look like it stalls out here. Let me see if I can pause it. Right there. Watching this area right here, folks. And I'll slow it down a little bit. It almost acts like it's just kind of stalling out here near Maine. I'm having difficulties, folks. Bear with me. It doesn't want to work. I'm showing too much truth. My computer's locking up on me because of all the truth I'm showing tonight, I think. I'm sorry about that, folks. It's just something we do here at the Grand Solar Minimum. It's all about truth, right? Yeah, this is completely locked up now, so I can't even show you once again. That's bad news, in my opinion. GFS is all wonky. Why? Because of low solar wind, variations in the jet stream, polar vortex is weak. We're getting more shots of cold air. It's becoming the wet season, the rainy season over there in Northern California. Bad, bad, bad. I'm sorry for the West Coast, and I hope we can get some of these folks out of this area because of what could happen with these floods, mudslides. This could be a very bad time from November 25th. Actually, it starts November 22nd. So from the 22nd through the 5th of December, we're looking at maybe 3 dry days for Northern California. There's going to be days where continuous heavy rain is forecasted. Now, here's where I'm going with this. Where is your El Nino? Because the Modaki El Nino predicts drier weather through the winter in California, Nevada, and Arizona. But yet, after November 22nd, that dry spell is ending. And it looks like we're going to have continuing moisture pumping through Northern California. So if I just remember talking about Modaki El Nino and how it's going to be dry and hot and fire season is going to extend up to February. And I'm not so sure now. Now we're talking about floods again. At the very beginning of rainy season. Our thoughts and prayers will be with these folks out there. Thank God that our government is now finally backing the state, regardless of what our federal government thinks of state politics. You have to be there for the people, and I'm glad to see, regardless of whose fault this is, whether it's mismanagement or the drought or the power company where the line that arced that started this whole thing in the first place. You think about when that first started, it was hot, the arcing and the wind, it just spread like crazy. And like Jerry Brown said, it was part of a natural cycle. This weather conditions are part of a natural cycle. But before the election, he's talking about man-made global warming. Remember? Here's the North Atlantic, and it's taking a plunge again. It's now 0.202 below baseline here as of November 19th. And we have seen a trend in the North Atlantic where it has shown that it's continuing to increase. As you do look at this scale, we do see a trend in the northern parts of the North Atlantic. But we'll see where that continues as we get colder naturally, as it's that time of the year. El Nino is struggling. I mean struggling. This anomaly right here, and that's a big arrow, but this anomaly right here, I can make that smaller. Let's do that. Nope, I don't want to move that. Well, forget it. This anomaly right here, if I can get my ass in order, was just that, an anomaly. This actually was expected to stay in this region for the next several months. The temperatures are supposed to be somewhere from here to here between now and February. And yet our temperatures continue to plummet, and they don't want to move away from that threshold of 28 degrees Celsius, which is plus 0.506 to be exact. I don't think so. There's our snow extent for November 29th. Very impressive for November, guys. And winter is still less than a month away at this point. If you look at where we are now, actually we're a month and a week away from winter weather. Actually, we're a month away and 2 days. I'll get this right, guys. It's Monday. So a month and 2 days away from winter officially on the calendar. And we're seeing a very, very consistent snowfall and snow depth throughout North America. NASA is talking about solar minimum creating cold temperatures on our planet. That was an article you can find on NASA. You can also find it on foxnews.com. Several news sources have posted this article about NASA talking about a cooling trend is on the way, but no one wants to deny it. No one wants to tell you that Weather Channel is a privately owned company so they can believe what they want. What are they going to say about NASA? There's our anomaly across the El Nino 3-4 region. Here we are, 28, 28, 27, 26. Those are our main temperatures for El Nino 3-4, guys. They are at or below threshold. Okay? We are nowhere where we should be right now for a persistent El Nino to be forming. And I don't see how NOAA can sleep at night by telling the American people and people around the world that we are at 80% confidence that El Nino is going to happen. When? 2020? 2019, December? It's not this year. I was on board for a Modaki. I'm not on board for one at all. Period. Let's take a look at our weather radar for our friends across the pond here at windy.com. As we take a look at this, this is where I will give the opportunity for Maury to say hello to everybody in the chat. I know this has been a lengthy broadcast tonight, but there's been so much going on with our current weather situation, weather snow records being broke. We've got politicians admitting that everything's created in natural cycles. Really got to get these squeaky floors fixed. Mari, go ahead and say hello to everyone in the chat.
Hello to everyone in the chat. So I'm trying to get the link for people to join the Discord chat. Could you switch it to the logo so I can pull up a window real quick?
I sure can.
I'm going to be different, I guess. You know, me, always new and exciting, Jake. I want to thank Justin L. for posting. Let me just pull up this link. I'm sorry, guys. I'm being
Well, it's got to be good, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's something cool. And I asked people who buy our t-shirts to send me a pic. Let's see ya. And I am so stoked that he is sharing his shirt with us.
Nice.
So, what's up, bud?
That's a good-looking shirt. I wouldn't mind.
Thank you.
I wouldn't mind one of those in a hoodie style myself. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink,
right,
wink,
I'll
Christmas
stop
present.
Embarrassing him. He gave us the permission to say, but it's good to see people
Yeah.
in the shirts. Henrik's shared video
Henrik has,
of him
yes.
in his shirt. Starman's done the same. Rob has a mug. Maybe he'll
enlighten
let
us
me share
with-
his
right.
mug. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Justin L., for the support.
Let
And
me see if I have anything else.
I appreciate that. That shirt looks good on you, my friend.
We have like new people in the chat. don't ever be afraid to ask questions. If you think it's silly or not,
Don't matter.
this is a learning channel. We're not going to criticize you or, make you feel bad for asking a question. We're all here to learn with each other about the topic.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, too, because maybe if I don't have the answer or Mark doesn't have the answer, I've always got people like Miss C. Gypsy or Rob or Starman or Henrik, other folks that visit us from time to time, that also Radical Gardener, just other really knowledgeable folks who pay attention to what's happening in the GSM community and have learned themselves and can help other people connect the dots as well. So that being said, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. I think we've been on long enough, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in at a later time than we had normally prepared for. But it is a crazy week this week. We do anticipate to be back live on the air 9 p.m. Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. Guys, I'm going to do my best to put on a show for you guys Friday night at 10 p.m., possibly 10:30. We'll just have to play it by ear. Long day for all of us. Long week for most of us as well, so with the holiday coming up. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we will talk soon, guys. Take care. Please like and share. And also check us out on Patreon. Again, it can just be $1 if that's what you want to subscribe to, or just follow us. Just help get the word out for our Patreon channel. We want another platform to kind of get everyone gathered at as well.
Patron Day.
It is Patron Day, isn't it?
It's Thank a Patron Day.
Thank a Patron Day. All right, sounds good. All right, now we will go ahead and sign off, guys. Thanks for tuning in once again, and we will talk soon. Take care.